Let's finish this scene, add a few finishing touches to really add some polish to this animation. So let's deal with this scarf here. We can add a little bit of animation on the scarf, showing that it is being dragged behind the snowman as they move across. So let's go into our snowman puppet comp and see what we have to do. Here is our scarf. The way it was drawn does not really lend itself to animating it on a rotation or not really scaling, not really positioning it either. Now, we could have split up the scarf onto two separate layers. That's totally fine. But we can use a distortion tool in After Effects called the Puppet tool, and this will allow us to very quickly add some minor animation to this layer. So the Puppet tool is up here. It looks like a push pin, and if you click and hold on it, there's several different tools that you can use. So let's go to the default one, the Puppet Position tool, and we'll get this icon and just click somewhere on the scarf. And I'm going to press period to zoom in and hold down spacebar. So make sure your mesh is showing, and you can click this to reveal it. As soon as you put a puppet pin, it creates a mesh that surrounds the entire layer with triangles. And so this is how it's going to deform or distort this scarf along the shape of these triangles. You can use expansion just to make sure that the mesh is really fully encapsulating all of the pixels involved, and you can also control the density of this mesh. Just be aware that the more dense it is, potentially it can slow down your computer. So in general, you only want to have as dense a mesh as you need to get the deformations that you want. So a puppet pin of the position tool will allow you to move the position of that part of the mesh. Be aware that this is adding effects to your scarf layer. So again, you want to use the puppet pin tool sparingly because the more dense it is, the more puppet pins that you have, the slower potentially your computer will get. So every puppet pin that I have here that I added 4. It's creating separate little layers here that I can control. And you can see I can keyframe each of these pins. So let me undo that. We can do this a little bit more economically if I show you some of the other tools that we have. So we have a starch tool, just like if you were ironing clothes and you wanted your collar to be stiff. If I add a starch pin and I move the position pins, then you'll see it doesn't deform as much. We also have specifically a bend pin tool, which acts like rotation. So I click here, and the only way you can use this is to bend it. So this might look pretty natural for our scarf in the wind, right? We also have something called an advanced pin tool, and this gives you all of those tools all in one pin. So I can rotate it, bend it. I can also position, move it. And then there's also an overlap pin tool. So if we really wanted one part of the scarf to overlap the other, then we could use that. To overlap it or to prevent it from overlapping it. So this tool is pretty useful. It's pretty powerful. But I think the best use case scenario for it is for some quick organic movements. So I deleted all that so that I can start over. I'm going to put 2 puppet pins here to kind of anchor the scarf. And I'm going to put some starch pins here because I don't want this part to move as much. And then I might I think I'll use the advanced puppet pin tool. And that feels pretty good. I might add one more here too. So I just have a little bit more control. Okay, and then I will get back to my original position here. And then unsolo this so that I can match the scarf animation and have the body's movement begin to affect the scarf. So when the snowman goes down, I can animate the scarf coming up just a little bit in reaction. This is a counter action. So it'll come up just a little bit. Okay. And then at this point, we can jump back to our scene. When the snowman is gliding, I can have the scarf stretch out and dragging behind. So starting around here, I'm going to want that scarf to straighten up. So I'll position this out. I can even stretch it just a little bit. Okay, so I'm not sure why that jumped back. Oh, that's because I have a stray keyframe here. So let me just zoom in, pressing plus on the top of my keyboard. Okay, yes, so I'm going to delete these. I don't want these. Okay. Zoom back out, press minus on the top of my keyboard. And then when the snowman starts to slow down, I need to go back to my background scene. Yeah. So the snowman starts to slow down here. So I'm going to want that scarf to return to its neutral state, probably beginning here. So I'm going to copy and paste these keyframes. I'm not going to move these because I want the scarf to remain still here. So I'm bookending it with these keyframes. And then I want the scarf to come back to its neutral position. When did oh yeah, I said it was around here. I want it to. So then I'll come back and then I'll animate it falling down. And then I can just further have it settle just a little bit after. And of course, I can add eases on all of these keyframes as well. Okay, I can even add this waving just a little bit if I wanted to. So it's not so stiff. And I can put eases. Press plus to zoom in. Create a little bit of an ease. Zoom out, press minus on the top of my keyboard. And then we're going to ease into this. Press plus to zoom in. And let's ease. Press minus to zoom back out. Okay. So we can see how this looks. Let's save. So I'm going to move the scarf animation. The scarf starts to float up before the snowman even moves. Yeah, I'm going to push that back. So you can see the puppet tool, you know, it has its limitations. It can be a little bit hard to control. So it's best used for things like if your character is an animal and has a tail, or even just having some blades of grass in the foreground. You can easily animate like trees swaying gently in your background art layers. So use it sparingly. It can save you a lot of time, but it also can be a little bit hard to control. Okay. Oh, that's why it's floating up, because all these keyframes started at the beginning of the scene, so I'm going to delay it. I'm going to delay the scarf lifting up here. And I'm going to add a really long ease out here. So pressing plus to zoom in, and then, yeah. Okay, the timing and the overlap feels better there. Okay, save. So another thing we can add, of course, is some snow. So let's make a solid layer. We'll go to Layer menu, New, Solid, and we can choose a white for our snow color. And a solid layer is one of those elements that you can make natively in After Effects. So if you needed just like a solid color background, or creating a shadow of any kind, this is one way to do it. You don't have to make it in Photoshop and bring it in. You can just create it right here in After Effects. You can also create shapes as well. Solid layers are often used in conjunction with the effects in After Effects. So we're going to add a snowfall effect. We can find it in the effects menu under Simulation, CC Snowfall, or you can go to your Effects and Presets panel and type in what you're looking for. Oops. So we're going to take this effect and drag it on top of our solid. And then in our Effect Control panel, this is where we can control the parameters. So every effect in After Effects also has a stopwatch next to it, which means that we can animate these attributes. So this goes to show you how powerful After Effects can be, because there's so many different parameters that you can animate. So here we are in our solid layer. We have the snowfall effect on it, and we're in the Effect Controls panel. This is a similar panel that you'll find in Premiere Pro. So let's scroll down. We're going to change this. We're going to uncheck this box so that it's not compositing with our solid color card. And it's going to treat that color card as transparent. And then by default, we already have some snow falling very nicely. But of course, it's more fun to customize these effects and stylize them so that it matches the art direction of your animation. So we can go in here and start playing with these different settings. Here you can control the amount of snowfall. By animating this attribute, you could actually animate a blizzard, right? So starting from fewer snowflakes to a lot. So you would keyframe this. You can control the size of the snowflakes. So you'll want to match the size of the snowflakes, the scale of it, match it with your scene. You can control the variation so that they're not all uniform. Let's zoom in here. You can control a little bit of depth in here. So After Effects, it is a 2D program, but certain effects have can give you this fake sense of depth, that Z-axis. So we can use this scene depth. We can certainly control the speed that the snow is falling, even varying the speed of each individual snowflakes. We can add a wind factor, variation on the wind, the spread of the snowflakes, so how densely packed they are. So these are all great things to customize. You never want to use an effect just like its default settings, just straight out of the box. You always want to customize it. And you can even use an effect to create a completely different effect. So if I changed the color of the snow, I can even change it to something dark and gray. I can change the color of my solid that it's living on to another color, and suddenly I can have this effect of like ash falling instead of snow, just by changing the solid layer color. So I definitely encourage you to check out these effects and then see how far you can customize it. So let's go back to our main scene, save it. Let's play it down. Just make sure everything is working. And then we can render. So we have these blue bars. This shows you the section of the timeline. You can also just zoom in and out or use this slider here. And remember, zooming in and out is just plus and minus at the top of your keyboard. And then we've got these blue brackets here, and this is your work area. So always be aware of what you're rendering. Don't render, like 30 seconds of black space at the end. Always check your work area. So we animated about 6 seconds. So let's only render 8 seconds. We don't need to render the last 4 seconds. There's nothing there except the snow falling, but the character's not moving. So we can move these brackets and trim our work area to just the time that we need. A shortcut here is to press N for the ending of your work area, and then you can even press B for beginning. So you can use B and N to mark your work area before you render. I'm going to save again, and then let's send this to the render queue. So we're here in our main comp timeline window, and then we'll go to composition, and then add to render queue. And then now here is our render queue tab, and it shows that our main comp is what's being rendered. And then we're just going to double check all of our settings. So we want this at full quality or best quality, full resolution. Make sure your frame rate is 24. And then here, make sure you're just rendering your work area, so that part that we trimmed. And then you can confirm the duration here, 8 seconds. Let's also double check our output module. So delivery for class is always a QuickTime movie. And our format is always Apple ProRes 422 HQ. If there was audio in your comp, you can change those settings here. You can also, from here, you can also resize and crop. And then click OK. And then now your output, make sure this is going to your exports folder. So generally, your render will be named after your shot. You can delete main. And then in a studio setting, this is often followed by a version number, or maybe more specifically the date and the animator's initials. Then make sure you press render, or you can send it to the Adobe Media Encoder and have that render in the background while you continue to use After Effects. For now, I'll press render, and you'll see this bar. It will show you a preview, but if you press caps lock, it will go just a little bit faster, because caps lock will disable the preview so that it just focuses on rendering. You'll hear that chime when it's done, and then you'll want to check your file, make sure it plays, make sure there's no extra layers that are turned on that should have been turned off, make sure your effects are looking good, and then double check your work before you upload it and deliver it.